Welcome to this edition of What Matters. And today I am joined, my co-host again is Coach Drew.
Yeah.
Was born as Andrew L. Blackwood, but we call him Coach Drew.
Yes.
And today we have, I know I say they're special, but they really, truly are. I have a special guest with me today, Dr. Joan.
Hey, everybody.
So, Dr. Joan Samuels-Dennis.
Samuels-Dennis, yes.
Samuels-Dennis. So Dr. Joan Samuels-Dennis.
Yes.
And Dr. Joan, you are a colleague of Coach Drew.
Yes. Andrew and I met through a colleague at church who thought, Andrew does apologies and I do forgiveness. So, she thought it was a perfect match, right? Isn't that true, though?
It's so true.
I forgive you.
Thank you so much. And I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I don't know what I'm sorry for, but I just, that was the thing to say. I remember when Wilma, a colleague of ours, as you mentioned, because I just released the book, and in the book it talks about, the genuine apology being a bridge between forgiveness and reconciliation.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And honestly, it's difficult to do the work of the genuine apology unless you go to the place of forgiveness.
Right.
So when I met Dr. Joan, I thought I knew something about forgiveness. I'm telling you, she took it to a whole nother level.
Thank you, Andrew.
Oh,
yes.
No, absolutely. Like, I am going to be posting on my page, Erica Elita, I'm going to be posting some of Dr. Joan's videos. You can check them out on YouTube. And I was sitting there last night and I was writing notes, and then I just stopped. I said, I'm just going to talk to her today because so much information, so much breakdown. Oftentimes people tell you, this is what you should do, but they don't tell you how, and that's where a lot of us get stuck.
Yes.
So let's start at the beginning. So you are Dr. Joan.
Yes.
And you are also a registered nurse.
Yes.
So how did you go from nursing into forgiveness therapy?
The forgiveness therapy, I say, is it's all spiritual work. It's my ministry. And I was called into the ministry a really, really long time ago, but the response to the ministry came very, very slow. Mm-hmm. I had to make a couple of mistakes, go through the wrong doors and that sort of thing, and then kind of realize, because the message was always very nagging at me. You're not in the right place doing what you're supposed to do. I mean, literally, Erica, I would come home and say that to my husband. I know I am not doing the thing I was born to do. Right. And he would say, well, what is it? And I would say, I don't know.
That's right. Frustrating. I know.
So it took me a time of really moving through a place of stuckness. Mm-hmm. That place where you're like, I'm stuck in the mud. I feel like I should be somewhere else other than where I am right now. But where is that place I'm supposed to be marching to? And when you are stuck there for a little while, and if any of you are feeling that way, it's because you have some big things ahead of you, right? Yeah. But you have to do what I call soul work. So here I am. I've gone through a nursing program. I'm a healer. That's exactly what I would call myself now. Yes. And so I'm in a profession that's really a healing profession. I'm interested particularly in mental illness and how do I heal mental illness. Mm-hmm. But all the ways I've studied, as I went through my PhD, I was very dissatisfied with even my thesis because I didn't feel comfortable even incorporating this. Yes, I didn't even feel comfortable because I wasn't incorporating the side of myself that's spiritual. Wow. Right?
Yes.
And when that was missing, when I couldn't have conversations about spirituality, when I was teaching at a university, and I felt like if I said Jesus, then people kind of went, "Are you from Mars?" Or like, where are you from? Right? Yeah. And they look at you very strange. So when you're in a place like that and you're feeling totally disconnected from your spiritual side, it leaves you in a place where you're going, like, where do you want me to go, Lord? So I started praying a very simple prayer. And the simple prayer was this: Lord, close the right doors, open the right doors, right? And after you begin to pray a prayer like that and you mean it, all the doors close, right, at first. And then slowly the doors begin to open, right? And that's literally what happened. I mean, I left the job. I felt pushed out from the job, but I left the job on my own. But nevertheless, I wanted to leave the job. Then I went into another job, and then I felt as I walked through the door, it was the wrong door, right?
Just not
and
right.
I'm going, it's not right. I can't stay here. You know, I tried to stay for a little while, but then I'm like, I can't, right? I must go. I must start the work that God wants me to start. And it was when I did that, in a space of depression, actually, because stuckness brings you a place where you're like, I am despairing because I don't know where it is that I'm supposed to go. But when you start to do soul work, which this forgiveness is, everything clears up. Doors begin to open in all sorts of places that you never anticipated they would open, you know, and so that's basically how I got to where I am.
You know, so I'm hesitant to interrupt you for so many reasons.
Because you just want to let her go, right?
That's the primary one. One of the reasons why I love talking, Dr. Joan and I became friends.
Yes.
I mean, like real friends.
Yes.
And one of the reasons is you are so thorough and entertaining, right? The descriptions, I mean, when she talks about the work that she does and even the work that you've done in your own life, which actually really qualifies her to do work with other people.
Absolutely, yes.
I get so drawn in. Because
100%.
it's real and there's so much richness to it.
Thank
now,
you.
the last time I was here, I alluded to it a little bit, that sometimes I'm hesitant, not for my own sake, to talk about the spiritual side of the work that I do, because sometimes you go a little too far. It's like people get so kind of nervous and they kind of predict where you're going and then they miss out on something.
Yes.
So how do you help people be open and embrace the spiritual reality to forgiveness, and how that stuckness sometimes could actually be a calling?
You know what, Andrew? I don't even talk about it, because the thing I say is, when you become who you truly are, which this forgiveness process unravels, you cannot help but notice that you're a spiritual being. You cannot help but notice that then God begins to connect with you. I don't have to say a word to anybody. You know, people come into my office and they might be like, oh, you're a Christian. Well, I don't really want to hear that Christian stuff. And I go, all I do is I love you. That's what Christians are supposed to do. And that's all I'm doing. And as I love you through this healing journey, if you want to talk about God, you talk about God. But we don't have to talk about it, because God will talk to you directly. When we're clear, when we get rid of all the muck that forgiveness, you know, kind of traps us in, when we get rid of all of that, God speaks to us. So I don't have to do it. God does the work.
You clear the path.
I just clear the path.
You're just clearing the
and
path.
I don't even have to tell you I'm clearing a spiritual path for you, because you'll know it.
You'll
without
the
me
person
saying
will
a
realize
word.
it.
Yes.
There's so many things that you've said that resonate so deeply. And that's stuckness. I did a very quick Facebook Live before I came to kind of give you an idea what was going on. And, you know, this is the fourth time or the fifth time you're on, Andrew? Andrew and I call it our forgiveness series, because that's what we've been speaking about, is forgiveness and how it plays into your life and apologizing. And I remember the first mind-blowing moment where he was like, no, well, you know, it's not that you apologize and you're forgiven and then you reconciliate. He's like, first you have to, the forgiveness comes first. And I was like, madness, this is right. And then over 4 weeks, he learned me.
Yes.
And one of the things that, you know, one of the reasons this is so important to me, and I really believe that, you know, whether you want to call it God or if you're more comfortable, the universe, what it brings you is what you need.
Yes.
Especially if you're clear about it.
Yes.
And, you know, before I even met you, I started this journey of forgiveness. And then, well, the universe said, well, you know what, let me put a whole human here. And he just goes through. And he'll bring his friend.
Yes.
But that's where I was. And that's when I realized I had to forgive, because I've done so many things and I've made a lot of broad and bold movements. Yes. But I was stuck.
Yes.
I was just stuck. There was a point I couldn't get past it. And there's this shiny thing on the other side. And like you said, knowing you're destined for something, but not knowing what it is.
Yes.
And it's like, Erica, what's your purpose? Well, I want to help.
Right.
Help what?
Yes.
People. Do
Yes.
what? Not sure. I just want to help. And just stop.
Yes. Yes.
And then one day I really stopped and I looked at myself and I said, Erica, why are you here? You know, they say that if you keep going through the same thing, it's a lesson that keeps coming back to you because you didn't learn.
Cycling through.
You keep going back through it.
Yes.
And then I realized that there was contention and there was anger I was holding on to.
Yes.
And it blocked every path. Things that it had nothing to do with, allegedly.
Yes.
It was blocking.
Yes.
This was a personal matter, but I wasn't going anywhere in my career. This was a personal matter, and I wasn't going anywhere on my side business.
Yes.
And this was a personal matter, but I was having problems with my kids.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, why do we keep coming back here? And what I realized, because the other thing too is I don't have a list of I hate yous.
Right.
I really don't.
Right.
It was actually this one person. They
well,
were the
that's
list.
it. That's it.
They were the whole list.
He owned the list, right? And I realized that energy,
Yes.
even if we say it's passive, but it's not, that energy was being put there and taken away from everything else.
Everything else.
So when we come back, where are we going, Dr. Joan? I'm going to let you lead.
We're going to talk about exactly what you just said. We're going to talk about that moment in time that blocks us all.
Okay.
And if we then clear that moment in time, we'll see how then all the roads and doors open up.
All the doors. And windows, too. I'm
and
telling
windows.
you. Vents,
the whole house.
All right. We'll see you right after this break.
Are you retiring smart? Make your home's equity work for you. With your home's equity and our 30 years of experience, the Retire Smart Properties team can help you achieve the quality of life you've always wanted. Our services are 360 degrees. We'll give you advice, take care of staging and selling, and help you find the perfect home and community to transition to. It's time to enjoy the retirement lifestyle you deserve. Visit our website today to learn how you can use your home to retire comfortably. The Retire Smart Properties team, powered by RE/MAX West.
And welcome back to What Matters, and we are here with Coach Drew and Dr. Joan, and we are speaking about forgiveness. So that's a very, very big package, forgiveness, a very, very big package, and it can be broken down, I think, into, for me, two large divisions. It'd be self-forgiveness and the forgiveness of others. So we are now going to speak about that blockage that you get, right? For being in a place of is that unforgiveness?
Yes,
is that
unforgiveness.
Even a word?
Yes.
Okay, unforgiveness. Yes. So tell me a bit about that, because I know I have experienced it, and maybe by explaining it and describing it, there's somebody out there that's going to recognize that force in their own life.
Yes.
So tell us a bit about that.
So in the book, I talk about something called the record. It's the record of wrongs. Mm-hmm. So the wrong is a moment in time when we feel unloved. So someone does something to us and we experience a sense of either fear or being overwhelmed, or in general, just feeling unloved. And that unlove, if we think about how Paul in the Bible talks about what love is. Love is patient, love is kind, it keeps no record of wrong, it trusts, it hopes, it allows, it accepts, all of those sorts of things. Unlove is the opposite of those. And so we have these moments in time where we experience unlove. And in our spirit, we record that. So the type of therapy that I do, what I do is I locate the first moment in time when a person feels unloved, right? And so I go to that moment in time. Your body actually holds that information. And I use what's called a muscle strength test to actually test your body and find that moment in time. I will know the day, the year, the month. I will know the minute, the hour. Wow. I will tell you the second if I need to help you to remember it.
Okay, wait. Let's slow down. Because I know that this is where people are kind of like, What?
What's she talking about, Willis?
Listen about if you could backtrack a little bit.
Yes.
Tell us, one, how you got to
Yes.
this ability.
Yes.
And I'm curious, does your nursing background have anything to do with your ability to do this
What
kind
I
of work?
do.
Yeah.
The nursing background, I think, and the ways in which my history helps me to do what I do is simply, I think, more my analytical abilities, my ability to kind of dissect things and investigate, because forgiveness is a bit of an investigation.
Right.
So the way that I got to this was, as I was in my place of stuckness, I moved through this forgiveness process with somebody actually testing me and my body and locating the moment in time where I first felt unloved. Now, I was consciously aware of that moment. I was 3 years old. I was at the Norman Manley International Airport in Jamaica. My mother is getting on a plane and she's flying to Canada. And that is the first moment in time where I feel alone. I feel like someone has abandoned me. I feel like someone doesn't love me enough to take me with them. And these are the ways in which we feel unloved. But every single one of us have a moment like that.
Right.
It may not be at 3. It may be at 1. It may be in the womb. It may be, you're 15. But we all have a moment like that, and I think that is for a purpose. Because in that moment, we find a few things. We find our purpose, first of all, but we also find how we want and desire love to be shown.
Okay, sorry. Okay,
Yes,
so
I'm going off on a different topic, so I don't want to go too far.
No.
Yeah, so in that moment,
Yes.
even if it was when we were 1, so that'd be something we
Yes.
don't technically remember.
Yes.
Or when we were older.
Yes.
You're saying it's in that moment we find our purpose?
Yes.
So the purpose is in the pain?
The purpose is in the love and the way that we love. So the way that I love is not by someone leaving, it's by connecting, right? So everything that I do is centered around connections,
Okay.
right? So my theme song could be connections, or it could be that everything that I now do is about connecting other people. I might work in a very connecting way, so I might be a person who would raise the banner of let's collaborate and connect, right? But in everything that I do, it's all about how do I love? And how do other people who love in a connecting way, how do we all come together now, right? So every single one of us is here to love, and that's our purpose. But connected with that is all of our realities, like our careers and like the things that we do in the everyday. And our love will show up in all of those ways in our special kind of way. So we will build our careers. If we're connectors, we might build our careers so that everything that we do then revolves around that theme. And when we work on that particular theme, we're at our highest potential. So another person might experience something totally different. Like a person might experience bullying in the schoolyard.
Okay.
They might become then a defender. They might become a lawyer. They might become a policymaker. But all of the work, if they are doing their best work, if they're doing the purpose-driven work, will then center around protection. It might center then around, prevention of that type of bullying. And those people, when they operate in that sphere, will be at their best.
Right.
You can go and try and operate in a different sphere that is not related at all to the first moment in time, but you will never feel as if you're doing
And that's
what you're
where
doing.
so that's how you'll constantly feel that disconnect in your life where you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing, that unsatisfying work.
Yes.
That I think I'd say the vast majority of people experience, right?
Right. And that's because we don't know some of these secrets. So the moment in time matters. And what we will realize is that we tend to focus on pain. We don't focus on love. So the forgiveness allows us to focus on love, right? And it allows us to move to the place now where we can say, okay, this is what I want from life. This is the thing, and this is the thing I'm going to give to myself. But we often focus instead on fear. And so the pain that's in that moment, let's call it, in the book I give the example, you know how we all learn to drive on black ice? You know, like if we are...
You should.
Right? Right? Like if we hit the black ice, what we should be able to do is focus on where we want to go. And then the steering should automatically turn, right? But oftentimes what we do is focus where the car is going, where the crash point, right? So the first moment in time is kind of like a crash point. And what will happen is we focus on the pain. And what we'll do is every time we cycle through, we talked about cycling through.
Right.
We'll cycle through these moments, and it's another opportunity to look in the right direction. But oftentimes what we do is we slide again and we crash again. And what we'll find is that the first moment in time creates certain patterns in the way that we think about ourselves, the way we think about other people, the way we think about the world, and how things operate. And so from that, we create like this script that we play by, the black ice. So every time something triggers within us a memory of that black ice, we go in the direction of the pain until we forgive. And when we forgive in the particular style that I use.
Okay, can you hear Andrew and I's brain doing this? Like,
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to go on.
I'm watching Erica's face because I know Joan, so I'm taking it in again, but I'm enjoying watching Erica take this in.
Whoa, so
okay,
now
what's happening in your brain?
What's
Tell
happening?
me.
I'm making a lot of connections, and it's going really fast, and I'm so glad this is recorded because I'm going to have
you get to watch it again, right?
But when you were saying that, that's such a great analogy, because when you're learning to drive, like they give you that pylon test, and they tell you, don't look at the pylons. That's not where you want to go. You look at the space in between the pylons. And it's like magic. Yes. You would have hit every single one before, and as soon as you look at the space in between the pylons, which is where you want to go, that's where your car goes.
That's right.
It's amazing.
Yes.
And so when you were speaking about that, I was also thinking of the law of attraction.
Yes.
And how when you affirm, you never affirm in the negative. You know, I don't want to be hurt.
Right,
well, okay,
right.
all the universe heard was hurt me, and that's what you get.
Exactly.
So when you're focusing on that crash point, or you're focusing on, oh my gosh, I don't want to go through this again. I don't want this pain.
But
You call it. You're bringing it back to you. So now this is where so many other things come into play. Faith.
Yes.
You know, whether it's a religious faith or a belief in yourself or believing.
Yes.
You know, that, and even once you're hurt, you kind of you almost don't want to wish for certain things.
Right.
You shut down. You know, it's like the person that says, well, no, I'm not interested in love.
Yes.
I don't believe you.
Right.
Because there are certain beliefs and conclusions, we talked about it before, the silent conclusions that we come to that we're not aware of.
Yes.
And everything that you're talking about, it's so interesting how we can talk about the same thing but use different language.
Yes.
And we talked about the baggage that people carry, the stuff we inherit, the stuff we're afraid to look at. We don't want to sort through and say, this is not mine, this doesn't belong to me, right? And that's what the forgiveness helps us do. It helps us to look at stuff. No longer are we afraid that this is going to hurt me.
Right.
We can look at it.
And when we look at that first moment in time, it gives us so much information because, you know, say you were 37 and something happened when you were 5 and you forgive that first moment in time. Now you're seeing and connecting all the dots, and you're able to see the ways in which you've cycled through. But today is a new day when you can make a new decision. You can look in the right direction because now you have the right information that will help you look in that new direction.
One of the things that,
now you're taking us to the commercial break, Andrew.
You know what? One of the things I love, we're going to have to come back to it after this short break, but I'll give people a clue. One of the things that I love is this reality of purpose and coming to it through forgiveness and apologizing and working on things.
Yes.
How do you live without discovering and experiencing purpose?
Right.
Amen. Okay, we'll be back after this break.
Good question.
Hello, my name is Anisha, and I'm the production manager of TCN Network. Have you ever wanted to host your own show? Do you have a message to share? Well, you're in luck. We are looking for dynamic and unique individuals to host their own shows. We are seeking people who are committed, motivated, and energetic. Do you want to be the next Jimmy Fallon, Ellen DeGeneres, or Shane and Ryan from BuzzFeed Unsolved? Start here. Fill out the Propose a Show form on mytcntv.com. We're here to educate, support, and build the community. Can you lead by example? Go the extra mile and seek knowledge? Are you humble, disciplined, responsible, selfless, and enthusiastic? Those are our core values. And if you identify with them, you could be part of a growing network that focuses on positivity and uplifting our community. We can't wait for you to join us on TCN Network and hope to hear from you soon.
So, now, one of the things that I'm really passionate about doing in my work with people is helping people move through a process that helps them to understand themselves even better.
Yes.
When you were talking earlier about understanding your purpose and coming into your own after going through a process, I totally relate to that. When I think about my own life, being a middle child, watching my parents, you know, their marriage fall apart, and because it was so tumultuous, I was happy about that.
Yes.
For me, the work that I do now is about healing and bringing healing to families and relationships.
Yes.
So, talk to us a little bit more about the connection between forgiveness and purpose.
Yes.
Yes.
So there are 4 questions that we ask through the forgiveness process. And we ask them for a specific reason because as a therapist, I would be looking for patterns. Now, you might think there aren't people that you need to forgive. For example, you're a very forgiving person. You smile all the time. You know, you're very jovial. You are contented, whatever the case may be. But every single one of us needs to actually engage with forgiveness as a spiritual practice. And that's just the way that I say it. And as much as you might pray, in as much as you might meditate, whatever the case may be, you also begin to notice within yourself the moments and times when your energy shifts away, when you actually feel depleted, when you feel tired, when you feel like your focus is slightly off, even though it's not off a whole lot. When you can't function at the highest level that you know that you usually function at, that means you need to forgive something. The question that you always have to ask yourself is, when did that depletion in energy first begin? Because something in the present moment is now triggering something that you need to return to in the past. There's always a connection between what's happening right now and what's happened in the past. But it takes a lot of insight to actually figure that out on our own. Even sometimes I need help doing that. But the first question is this: what did you want from that person or persons? It could even be an institution. It could be your work. It could be your school, whatever the case may be. But what did you want that you were not able to get from those people?
In that present instance?
In that present instance. But because I find the first moment in time is really what's most important, because what you'll find is what you want in the present is the same as what you wanted in the past. It never changes. So we go back to the first moment in time where you feel unloved, and we're asking the question, what did you want in that moment? And as you ask the question, then you're getting an answer. So do you mind if I use you as an example?
Sure.
You mentioned your dad a little bit earlier, and the fact that you've always been angry with him. Do you remember the first moment in time you became angry with him?
Well, the thing is he was absent, so
okay,
he wasn't there to be mad at.
Right.
And the first time I met him, actually, I was 6 years old.
Yes.
The office called me to the office.
Yes.
They said, your father's there. But my dad, the man I consider my father, who's technically my stepfather, they were confused because they saw one dude at the parent-teacher interview and another guy showed up. So I went and I recognized my own face.
Yeah.
You see yourself. You
Wow.
know when
Yes.
you see yourself. I'd never seen him before in my life, and I walked in and I'm like, that's Ben.
Wow.
And he came, and it was a little bit before my birthday, and he sat there and he said, you know what, I'll be back on the 14th, and I came to say hello, and I was amazed.
Right.
And then the day of my birthday, I stayed at the fence, and the schoolyard emptied, and my cousins went home, and I stayed by the fence, and he never came.
Right.
And it was my dad, that
came.
showed up in his gold Trans Am
Yes.
and took me to Consumers and bought me a Barbie. I remember that very clearly. So that was the first time I saw him,
Yes.
and I don't even remember being mad at that
Right.
time.
And you don't have to be angry. And that's the thing. A lot of people think that if you need to forgive something, you need to be angry. But sadness needs to be forgiven. Loneliness needs to be forgiven. Isolation needs to be forgiven. Grief.
Rejection.
All of those things need to be forgiven. And you don't necessarily react on an outward way with any of those. So let me ask you the question. What did you want from your father?
I wanted him to be present,
To show up.
and I wanted him to love me.
And he made a promise. You wanted him to keep his promise.
Absolutely.
And so what'd you get instead?
not that. I got him not showing up and not being there and being left. I didn't see him again until I was 15.
Wow, that's a long time. So between his promise and then seeing him the next time, you don't, it's almost like, how old were you the first time?
9 years.
6. So yeah, 9 years.
9 years. That's a long time. So he's basically absent. So the first question is, what did she want? And we heard, you know, be present, show up, actually live up to the promise that you've just made.
Yeah.
So do you notice all the times when you get mad at people that it's related to them not showing up, them not keeping a promise, them actually being absent for a period of time?
100%. As I was saying it, it just clicked in. And for me, I explained that to someone that's why sometimes I won't commit to things, because I don't like to let people down.
Right.
That's a huge thing for me, is letting people down. If I say I'm going to show up, I have to show up.
Yes.
And what I realize is I have a dear friend, and it's the same thing where she's not always there. She's a wonderful friend, but there are times where she says she'll show up and she doesn't.
And she doesn't.
And I had to withdraw from that because exactly that. And I explained to a mutual friend, that actually hurts me.
Yes.
And it's not even that I feel anger. It just hurts me so much.
Yes.
And you're absolutely right. Every time that I have been and it's usually disappointment, because I tend not to react in anger. And that's something that, you know, people have commented on, like, why do you just walk away? And that's kind of how I deal with situations I don't like. I just leave.
Well, it's more than likely how you dealt with the situation back then, too.
Right.
Right? And so everything is hidden in that moment. The thoughts that you have about people now is connected to that moment. And so what I always suggest is that it's a good idea to actually journal. So even before you actually move through the forgiveness process, ask those questions. What did I want? What did I get instead? And how did I feel about it? You've already said disappointed, right? I mean, the anger will be silent. It'll be pushed down, like right? Anything else?
I don't know if that's the proper word, but not being worthy.
Right. So not being good enough for somebody to actually live up to their promise and actually be present for the moments in time when they say that they will. Now, as you're journaling, you'll dive even deeper beyond just these feelings that we've talked about, but right now that's enough. Do you know why your father would have behaved that way? Why he would have gone out of his way to come and meet with you at the school and then make a promise that he would come back, but then not show up for another 9 years? Do you know what was happening with him that would have explained any of that?
No, I don't know what happened. I mean, because I did get to meet him again when I was older, and then I had the information from my mother, and then I had my own experience with him, I was able to, you know, that you get rid of the fantasy parent in your head, and you end up dealing with the actual parent.
Real one.
Because the absent parent is always the hero, right? Yes. Any child that is missing a parent or a parent is not present, they will tell you the other parent is obviously
because they can make
much better parent than this one who makes them brush teeth and do homework and whatever else.
Yes.
And so then when I got to meet him, it's like, wow, you're really awful for real. Like,
Right.
she wasn't making that up. You're really not a nice person.
Right.
And then there was this feeling of, it was just tremendous sadness, because I spent so much time missing something that wasn't even to be real. It wasn't real. Mm. And, you know, something I've told my own son is that, you know, our blessings sometimes come disguised as disappointments.
Yes.
And an absent parent is far better than a toxic parent.
Right.
So, but we don't know that as children, right?
Right.
So, when we love our parents no matter how they treat us.
Yes.
So, it's, what I realize is just sitting here speaking to you, and there's so much processing through my brain, is that is exactly it. And then what I do is I don't make myself 100% available for your rejection. I may be like 60 or 80% available, but there's that little reserve that if you don't show up after school,
you're still what I call disconnected, right?
Yes.
And until you completely forgive, you don't get reconnected. You have no desire to be with that individual or individuals. You will actually sometimes physically distance yourself. But the other part of this that I like to remind everybody is that we're all repeating patterns. We all have the black ice. So your dad has a black ice too. You have a black ice, you have a black ice, I have a black ice, but your dad has the black ice. So now the investigation that we do is about figuring out, why does he repeat a pattern that is not only toxic, but the pattern of being absent? Why does he repeat that pattern? Who left him behind? And it was so painful for him that now he's in a position where he's stuck, repeating the pattern over and over and over again. And so that is really when we hit a breakthrough with forgiveness.
So wait.
Well, we gotta go to break.
Yeah, we're gonna go to a break.
But
let me just summarize here.
Okay. Yes.
First of all, I so appreciate your openness and your vulnerability. I know you are helping people just
by speaking,
by being you, and being open and transparent.
I'm happy to share.
And I know your brain's buzzing, but
my brain is buzzing.
And one of the things that you're highlighting now, Joan, for us is the patterns.
Yes.
The family patterns that can go back for generations.
Yes, they do.
But I also think you're taking us down the road towards empathy.
Compassionate understanding, which is empathy.
And I guess that's where we're going back to after the break. So we'll be talking about compassionate empathy, which is a phrase I've learned quite a bit about.
Yes.
And maybe a quick how-to, a few more tips.
Absolutely.
And then we're going to talk about what's coming up for Dr. Joan. We'll be right back.
All right, Joan. Which camera are we at? Camera one. Okay. All right, Joan. We're in camera one. Okay. I'm excited. I can hardly keep my seat here because you are going to talk to us a little bit about compassion and empathy and how all of that connects forgiveness to purpose. All in 5 minutes.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. You have 5 minutes. And how you can compassionately understand the person that's hurt you.
Yes.
By Dr. Joan.
You cannot forgive unless you come to a place of compassionate understanding. I mean, it will simply stall the process. You can list off what you want. You can list off what you got instead. You can cry. You can scream. You can do all of those things. But until you come to a place where you step into the other person's shoe, where you actually try to do your own investigation, we've all heard family stories. We've all got that little bit of background that helps us to understand why the other person behaved the way that they do. We've got an understanding of what patterns have been created in their lives. So the forgiveness process is about revealing that. And sometimes I'll just say to the client, just, what do you know about this individual that you can tell me that would help me understand why they behave this way instead of the way you wanted them to? And immediately, everyone has a story that they can recount to me. And then as a therapist, what I do is I tease that apart and I show how that's connected to what's going on with you right now. And so once I reveal that to the individual, then they go, okay, I understand the person's black ice. I understand the pattern that they're recycling through and how that impacts me.
What do you do and what do you say to the person who, I don't care about their black eyes. I don't care why they did what they did. They hurt me. I don't want to.
I've never had that.
Really?
No.
I have a question.
You never had that.
I wanted to know.
Maybe it's possible, but I've never had that.
Never had that.
Yeah.
I want to know, what do you do when it's a stranger? Because this seems to be in the context of someone you know. Usually, you know, because honestly, it's the people we love that tend to hurt us the most.
Yes.
But there are those random incidents where a stranger comes out of nowhere. That truly random thing where you are just a victim of randomness. And they do something.
Yes, and if you saw my video, my YouTube video on self-forgiveness, I talk about this guy that did this screaming thing at me, like just a total blast, a total stranger on the train. So I can totally get the stranger who does something, or the stranger who rapes you, or the stranger who beats you up, or something violent, right?
The drunk driver that kills your parents.
Right. So for those people, it's harder because you don't have the background to actually see their pattern. But I always explain it this way, and most people understand it, that what we get is what we give. And most people can step into their own sense of being and know through their own experiences that what their parents gave them is what they give to themselves and what they give to other people. Yeah. And so what I can say is, someone has taught this person to yell at other people, and it's totally acceptable for them to do that in a public place. It's totally acceptable for them to just blast somebody and leave. And they have learned that from somewhere. And so that's what they've received, and that's what they now give. Most people are able to, and I should say all people that I work with, are able to step into that. And even for the rapists, offer compassionate understanding. Once you have compassionate understanding, now we move on to some simple statements. I let go. I love you. Yes, I love you. We say, I love you, even to the rapist. Not, I love you, I want to hug you intimately, but I love you as a person of the human race. God has created all of us. God loves all of us. So I love you. And I accept you for where you were, for what you did, for the person that you will one day become, because we're all evolving. We're all moving to the next level. And for the person who hasn't forgiven, they're kind of stuck. But for other people, they're moving to the next level. And I'm wanting to move on now from this. I choose to move on from this. So those statements are all really key. And they're kind of like a mantra that we do at the end of the forgiveness. The last part is, I choose to live. I choose not to die. Because that first moment in time, when we despair, when we become isolated, lonely, when we grieve, when we become angry or enraged because of what has happened, it means that we've stepped out of that place where love was ours, where love was the truth, where we understood that love exists. And so in stepping out of that, sometimes we make a bit of a death wish. If this is what life is like, I don't want to live it. So in this moment, as we finish up the forgiveness, we're saying, I choose to rise. I choose to live. I choose to be my best self. I choose to become the person that I'm supposed to become, right? I choose to live with a whole bursting, bounding level of energy.
What I love about it, again, is the empowering process that takes you away from hurt, through hurt, and into purpose. And I asked the question, what do you say to the person who, I don't want to, they're not there yet.
I'm trying to forgive you.
One of the things, I get so captivated by the way that you speak, and I think maybe people who meet with you experience the same thing. But she walks you, us, me through a process. And what happens in that process is we are heard. Our experience is so validated that we can move through that anger. Because a lot of times we hold on to the anger because nobody's heard it. And I'm going to hold on to this till everybody in the world hears it and something is done about it.
I tell you, people will say, I understand the other person more than they will say, I love the other person. So what I will get is some people who say, I can't say I love you. And so I'll say, well, we have to say it. So why don't you take a minute, take 5 minutes, and I'll be with you as you process the readiness to get to say that. And eventually most people say it. I've had one client who says, nope, can't say I love you. And I say, okay, we'll do that the next time, right? And so they go off, but the next time they come and they realize they get a release from this. So they're willing then to say, okay, I'll say it, I love you.
And your words the next time reminded me of something that I don't think people know from the outside of the process.
Yes.
That it is a process.
Yes.
It is
not
a
a one-shot.
Right? This is
Yes.
not, although
No.
we're talking in a matter of like, which camera am I talking to?
One.
We're still number one? Okay, number one. Although we're talking in spurts of 5 to 10 minutes here,
Yes.
for some people this process could take a little bit of time.
Well, I always say I guide you through the first 5 sessions because there's forgiveness of the other, there's forgiveness of self.
Yes.
And it's forgiveness using the exact same words. So, I forgive you, Dad, for not showing up, for being absent, for making a promise and breaking the promise. I forgive you for not showing up, for being absent, for breaking the promise, right? And you can see all the times when you've done the same thing as your dad in these small ways. It might not be the mighty ways that he did it.
It's little.
Right, it's little things,
We
right?
become perpetuators
That's
of
right.
the same
Yes.
hurt.
The same
Yes.
hurt, absolutely.
And so as you do the self-forgiveness, though, what you're doing is you are now opening your eyes up to the ways in which you've made certain decisions that trap you in a way of doing things, but also that trap you in a way of doing opposite of him. Because you might have made the decision, I'm never going to be like that guy. But then you do the opposite. Mm-hmm. You're present everywhere, right? To the point where it's like consuming so much of your energy that it's not healthy, right? Where you are, now you're turning down projects because you're afraid that you won't show up.
Right.
But the projects are there as an opportunity. So now you're closing doors that you shouldn't close. You should just be realistic with yourself and say, okay, so if I don't show up this one time, it's okay, right? I just need to be appropriate about it and give the proper excuse and do whatever, but it's okay, right? So you begin to release yourself from these beliefs that you think are helping you.
You get to unpack your baggage. You get to, so many good things I've learned. So I have to go back to being a host now because I've just been a student for this last hour. If you see, I'm just here gazing at her. I truly have learned so much. I have so much to process, and I thank you. Andrew knew what he was doing. I still feel blindsided. He warned me, but I still feel blindsided because this was a lot. But before we leave this episode, I want to play a short video. So can you tell us about your upcoming event? And we're going to share that video.
We have an event coming up that's called the Third Act, where we are inviting women who are in that phase of life where they truly want to live in their purpose. So, they might be at a stage where they're redesigning their lives, new relationships, new careers, and those sorts of things. We want to help them establish a vision, set up some goals, do the nitty-gritty step-by-step. And we're going to be talking about connecting with people and networking, building a community. Right?
So, Anisha, if you'd play that, I sent you the clip, right? Yeah. Okay, so we're going to play the video, and we'll be back in a minute, literally.
When we embrace that new relationship, when we're pushed out the door, and the opportunity to become our own boss finally arrives, when we've been called into a ministry, and we finally say yes, we all have one question. How do I ensure my success? We start with soul work. We dive deep and discover the buried desires of our hearts. We uncover and overcome the fears that stop us. We put ourselves in a place and a space where we can hear God's voice. Then, and only then, are we ready for the next step. If you're transitioning, we call this the third act. Join us on November 17th at the Royal Ambassador Event Center for a one-day retreat designed to ensure your success.
Welcome back. As you can see, we have a lot of fun here. And so, as usual, we did not have enough time. Andrew blindsided me. I feel like he's like, yeah, my colleague's going to come on, Dr. Joan. She'll talk a little bit about forgiveness. He did not say he was going to blow my mind. And I wasn't going to be able to speak.
See, I promise you, anybody who comes along with me, it's going to be really, really worth the time.
Whenever he brings someone, I'm just going to sit and listen.
It was so good to be here, Erica.
Oh, thank you. And
thank you for inviting me.
Oh, my pleasure. Yeah.
Very welcome back. I think that was part one.
Okay.
You guys agree that was part one with Dr. Joan?
Love that.
Yes, so we will definitely be having Dr. Joan back. I'm going to make those arrangements. Thank you for joining us again. Next week, our guest will be, he's been here before actually, so Keith Hill Jr. is going to be joining us, and Keith has a show called Ray and Nephew. If you're of Caribbean descent, you get the pun.
Yes.
And so we will see you next week here on What Matters. Thanks for joining us.
Take care, everyone.